Hey guys, welcome to the Artisan channel and welcome to my hands-on with the RGB20. Now the RGB20 has been designed by Powkiddy, yes, and their track record with their handhelds has been quite interesting because it's either a hit or a miss. But the prior iteration to the RGB20 is the RGB10, which definitely was a hit, and I've used it as my daily driver for quite a while until the RG351 came out with their new operating system, and I was blown away by the operating system of the RG351P. So the devices here are horizontal, of course, and this one is vertical. So if you're interested in horizontal handhelds, take a look at the links in the description down below to the reviews of these two handhelds out there, because these are the best horizontal handhelds out there. But we got a new challenger right here, a vertical emuelec running handheld that's capable of running N64, Dreamcast, PSP, and Nintendo DS, as well as older systems, of course. But that's very interesting to me, and I love vertical handhelds, so this is godsend. Let's get into the unboxing and take a deep look at this handhelds afterwards. So let's get into the unboxing. Now, the unboxing is probably going to be as bare bone as any other, but here we have the handheld, and it's a big handheld. Apparently, it's filling up the box completely. Let's take a look at the handheld. Wow, that's an interesting design. I'm feeling already the cavities here. Yeah, that's very interesting. We're going to see if that's comfortable or if this has any comfortability in mind. But we're going to see that after we unbox this handheld. We're going to go over how it feels and for whom this is designed. If it's designed for big hands or small hands, who knows? We're going to find out. Let's check out the bottom compartment. I already feel like there's nothing inside here really. What we got here is the user manual. It's in Japanese, Chinese, and English. We have our special combination functions, which means that the buttons to exit the game, volume up and down, save the game, and save location, stuff like that. Do we have anything else? Yeah. So we have some other things on the manual that you can read in your leisure, but we are going to carry on. And what we got over here is the USB Type-C cable. This is the usual one, and it's going back on the pile of USB Type-C. I'm getting a mountain of USB Type-C cables right now. It's good to see that it has USB Type-C cable, so that's a good thing to know. And we are operating in the right era. So the design choice of this handheld is nothing short of interesting, and the elephant in the room here is that it looks like a Famicom if it was modern and in a handheld format. Now this here also looks the same. It's probably they made it like the RG280V to combat its popularity, but you know, they're completely different handhelds. The size is very different, and the performance of this handheld is a lot better than the RG280V in terms of its power. And it's capable of running N64, Dreamcast, PSP, Nintendo DS, all that good stuff, and those systems. If you don't care about those systems, you might want to go with this one because you don't need the analog stick as well. But if you need those systems to be on your handheld, then definitely the RGB20 is something to keep in mind. Links are in the description down below in case you are interested. Now, the faceplate here, does it come off? No, it does not come off, because I tried to pick at it and it really doesn't go anywhere. I don't think you'll have an issue with it coming off or anything like that. Now, something else to mention is that the shoulder buttons are recessed into the body, and they're inside a cavity with walls and stuff like that. It's kind of interesting design choice. They made it like this to make it more pocketable, of course, rather than having the shoulder buttons at the back like that, and you're getting all kinds of gunk in there in your pockets, because this handle is quite pocketable in my opinion. But they could have made this completely opened up like the RG300, because that was very comfortable to use, and you know, move the shoulder buttons a little bit up there a little bit more, and a little bit more to the center, and make them a little bit bigger, because the shoulder buttons are a little bit on the small side. It's a little bit hard to realize which button you're pressing sometimes. And for the rest, once you put your fingers in there, they bump into the walls of the cavity if you have huge hands like myself. I make this handle look tiny, but it's not really. And you know, I bump into the walls quite often. And also once I reach for L1 and R1, it turns into a claw grip, which is not ideal at all in my opinion. And I wish that that would not be the case. It doesn't make me hate this handheld at all, but if you have huge hands, you have to keep that in mind. Now, if you have smaller hands, you probably wouldn't have as much of an issue with this as myself, but that's enough about the shoulder buttons. Let's move on to the face buttons. We got some extra buttons on the bottom over here, which is very interesting. You can map these to save states, load states, and volume up, volume down, or map them to C buttons in Nintendo 64 because those are needed to be used. And we don't have enough buttons on the RGB10, the prior iteration of this handheld, for Nintendo 64, but right now we do have. Actually, we did have enough buttons because we had the plus and minus buttons on the top. I forgot that, so it was okay, but this here is a lot better in terms of versatility. It's versatile in terms of its buttons layout, and you can map these to anything you want in RetroArch. Now we got the face buttons over here, ABXY, which are very good buttons. They don't move around or rattle or stuff like that. The contact pads are bouncy and very good, and they're not stiff, they're not loose. They're very good. I didn't have any issue playing around with games on this handheld and feeling that the buttons are not up to standards. Now we have a Nintendo Switch analog stick over here. I mentioned before that the analog stick on the RGB10 can break down after a while because it's a PS Vita knockoff analog stick, but this is a Nintendo Switch analog stick, which is very good and doesn't have that problem, and it's a very welcome change to their handheld. Now that's it for the face buttons. Start and select, of course, are clicky as well, like the other buttons down here, and not with contact pads, but that is not a problem at all, and it's easy to press both start and select to return back to emuelec's main menu. So we have a front firing speaker over here, which is very nice and very clear and crisp. It's not a stereo speaker at all because, you know, you wouldn't notice it anyways if in this type of design of this handheld, but this is a front firing speaker, which is a lot better than other handhelds because sometimes you can cover up the speaker grills with your fingers and stuff like that. No issues like that on this handheld. Now the back has some grills as well. These are not for speakers, these are for ventilation. There's no fan inside this handheld, by the way, just to mention. And to the top of the handheld, we got the OTG port, which you can plug in your OTG dongle. Let me focus. Yes. And we got Wi-Fi. Yes, that's really good. We got Wi-Fi on this handheld. We can download themes. We can update our operating system using Wi-Fi, and we can move our ROMs using our PCs and move them via Wi-Fi over to the handheld without plugging the SD card in there, and you'll have your folders very nicely organized and stuff like that using Wi-Fi, which is very easy to do as well. Now we got the USB port over here. It's also a USB Type-C port, but this is for charging, so they made those separate, of course. And we have a TF card slot. It came with a 64 GB SD card, which I swapped out for a 64 GB SD card of higher quality, a SanDisk SD card, which is advisable because SD cards are important to have them as good quality as possible. Now we have the headphone over here, the headphone jack, 3.5 millimeters. It's not for AV out, it's not for television, stuff like that. We don't have a way to plug this into the television, but you know, that's what it is on the top of the handheld. And now let's move on to the hardware and specs and talk about that a little, and also about the software. So this device over here has a RK3326 architecture chipset, which is clocked at 1.5 gigahertz, which is 200 megahertz more than other RK3326 chipset devices. It is overclocked a little, and I don't know if this contributes to having more speed and more performance in games, but it is welcome nonetheless. Now, this device also has a 1 GB DDR3 RAM in there, which is sufficient for the games that it can run and for this operating system. We are running emuelec on this handheld. And emuelec is a very good operating system. It's very bare bone, and it doesn't need too much RAM memory like Android and stuff like that. We are still waiting for Arc OS to be compatible with this handheld, but we keep our fingers crossed for that to happen in the future. Now, currently you can also try out the RA operating system for this device. We might test out some more operating systems for these types of devices in the future if I have the time, but we'll see if that is possible or not. Now, this here also has an expandable memory up until 256 GB of SD card memory. Now, it comes with a 64 GB SD card pre-installed already with some games on it. It's not a lot of games, but you can add your own games, and it's very important to know how to add your own games to this operating system. I'm also intending to make a video on how to get the most out of your RK3326 chipset devices in the future, and we're going to go over that in the future as well. It is not very hard. You can find it on the internet. I'll leave some links in the description below in case you want to find out how to add more games to your operating system over here. And we also have a 3000 milliampere battery in here, which is 200 milliamperes more than the RGB10, the prior iteration of this handheld. And it is a welcome upgrade, not really that much, but still good enough. And it lasts you up for 4 hours to 6 hours of gameplay, even sometimes to 8 hours if you're playing strictly 2D games. Now, I have experienced 4 to 6 hours only in most of the time, but I play a lot of 3D games as well. But this handheld over here also has a charging speed of 2 hours, so you need to charge it for 2 hours in my experience until it gets a full charge. I forgot to mention this handheld has Wi-Fi, which is really nice for your updates and for themes and stuff like that. And let's move on to the operating system. Now let's turn on the device and see how long it takes to boot. It has the hard kernel logo. That's because this is a Odroid Go Advance clone. It is a shameless clone, but still better than the real deal, especially in terms of the display and the inputs and stuff like that. It has Wi-Fi as well, so that's still a superior thing than the Odroid Go Advance. The display, of course, still is a 3:2 aspect ratio display, but it is very vibrant, very crisp, very clear, and it is laminated, so it is completely stuck to the screen. So that is very beautiful, and it's the best display that I have in my collection. But still, it being 3:2 aspect ratio ruins a lot of stuff. It is a middle ground between PSP and Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, stuff like that, all the 4:3 aspect ratio devices out there. But I understand that they wanted to have a middle ground between that, but you know, I still would have preferred 4:3, even if PSP would be smaller and not stretched like a small portion of the display. Still would be better if you have 4:3 aspect ratio. This, by the way, is a 480 by 320 display, so it is quite crisp and clear. As you can see from the systems that I got here, it's a colorful theme. As you can see, I downloaded from the internet. I'll show you how in a sec. We got all these systems on here. We have Vectrex, PC Engine, Game Watch, Nintendo, NES, Famicom, Game Boy, Super Famicom, Super Nintendo, Virtual Boy, Nintendo 64, and the list goes on and on. I have a 64 GB SD card on here filled to the max with all kinds of ROMs. It is completely full, and I cannot show off I cannot share my ROM selection and collection with you guys, but you know, it is important that you know how to put ROMs on this system, because it is very opens up a lot of options. You can also add box arts and videos and stuff like that. As you can hear, the sound is very nice as well. So this is a list of games that you can just maneuver in, and then you have the videos for the games on there as well. Not all of these systems have videos, like N64 doesn't have it. We have just box arts and some screenshots and stuff like that on there, but I got huge lists of games, and it still boots up very quickly, which is very nice. Like the list is unending. It's unending amount of fun, really, as you can see. So this came pre-installed with some ROMs and with an SD card, but the SD card wasn't really that great of quality SD card. So I recommend that you put your own SD card in there with your own operating system and learn a bit how to use this operating system and configure it to your liking. Because that is that's going to pull out the most of the potential that this system has, and it has a fast amount of potential. So let's check out the Wi-Fi things. We got network settings for your password, and you can just input the password using your keypad here. It has an on-screen keypad, so that's no problem. You don't have to use it like RetroPie in a file without you need an external keyboard for that. Here, emuelec has made it very easy for you to input your own password and SSID. You can update and download. Here we have themes we can download. I have downloaded the emuelec full ES theme on here. That's the theme that I'm using, but we got other themes that we can install. We also have emuelec full solo, which is also very nice. We can also check for updates, so you can start update. It says, of course, that there's no update available because this is emuelec 4.0. It's the latest version. It is the test version, but I wanted to test it out, so I put it on there anyways, and it works very well. You also can install, because at first you don't have Nintendo DS on here, but now you have Nintendo DS on there when you go to where is it? Let me just find it because I got a big list. We can go to install Drastic in setup, and then you install Drastic, and it just goes and installs it. You can install Drastic, enable it on Emulation Station and stuff like that. And I already have it, so I don't need to do that. But this operating system is really great compared to Android. There's no input lag at all. You don't have to worry about input lag and stuff like that. It is instantaneous, as you can see. Now we have sound on there. That's kind of a bug, I think. So that's that for the operating system. Let's move on to some gameplay, and I'll give you my verdict on this handheld as well. Now let's talk a little bit about this handheld, its pros and cons, as well as my verdict on this handheld. Now, there are a lot of pros to this handheld, but the cons are something that you need to keep in mind in case you're buying this handheld or want to see it improved in the future. Now, the first thing that I find the biggest con in this handheld is the shoulder buttons. It is made with only people with smaller hands in mind, and not people with bigger hands. If you have bigger hands, this might be a deal breaker for you because it's not really comfortable to hold after a long time of gaming, and you might throw in the towel because of the discomfort in your fingers after a while, and that might be a deal breaker for you because there are some other handheld options out there that are a lot more comfortable, like the RG351P, which is very comfortable for people with bigger hands as well. But if you want a vertical handheld and you find that the vertical handheld aspect is more important than comfortability, then you might want to go with this one as well, even if you have bigger hands, because my hands are not very sensitive to discomfort, so it's not really a big problem in my opinion for me. But if you have sensitive fingers, then definitely this can be a deal breaker for you. Now, another con to this handheld is the fact that it does not have a volume up or down button or wheel, which is a small con because it makes up for it with the software control of the volume, but like emulators with for the Nintendo DS and the PSP does not have that same hotkey for the sound up and down control that you have in the other emulators. Which is kind of irritating because you have to do that via the main menu on Emulation Station, which is kind of cumbersome in my opinion. Now, another con to this handle is the fact that it does not have many color options. If you find this color already very alluring or very beautiful, then you might be good to go. But if you want to have a different color, maybe you can wait it out a little bit because they also came out with a different color later on with the RGB10, and we might see a different color in the future, but right now the only option is the red one with the Famicom faceplate. Now let's go and talk about the pros of this handheld. This handheld has a very beautiful display. It is very colorful, very nice viewing angles, and it is one of the best displays in my collection, hands down, maybe even the best one out of them, as I mentioned before. and the sound is very good as well. It's a front firing speaker, which is very good, and it is right in your face, not really down firing like the other handhelds, and that makes a difference in my opinion. Now, another thing that's good about this handheld is the front buttons. The face buttons are very good, as well as the analog stick is a Nintendo Switch analog stick, which they changed from the last iteration, since it was a PS Vita analog stick. Nintendo Switch analog sticks are better and don't break down as fast. Now, another pro to this handheld is the fact that it runs emuelec, and emuelec is a very forgiving operating system and good for people who are new at operating systems like these and people who are veteran at RetroPie and stuff like that alike. It has save states, of course. It has load states. It has all the good bells and whistles that the other handhelds with emulation station and emuelec have. And also, this device also has Wi-Fi, which is a very big pro in my opinion. And maybe in the future we're going to see some game streaming services for this operating system as well. That would be very nice to see, because I would love to stream GameCube to this handheld. Now, we're going to see if that will be out there in the future or not, but we'll keep our fingers crossed, and if it comes out, then I'll definitely feature it on the channel, so stay tuned, guys. And that's it. That's about my verdict on this handheld, the pros and cons, and I like this handheld very much. I find it a very good handheld, and it's definitely a very good part of my collection. I think this handheld is very refreshing, very beautiful, and the shoulder buttons is like the only gripe that I have that is a major gripe in my opinion for people with bigger hands. For the rest, that's it, guys, for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.